I give it a second.
Okay.
How's it going, my Comic Chat Army? We're here today with Austin Janowsky, the 28 comic year veteran. How's it going, Austin?
It's going really good, man. Happy Sunday.
Hey, right. Happy Sunday. How's your Sunday going so far?
It's early, but it's good. Trying to be productive and sleep in. When you get to a certain age, sleep is very, very much work, apparently.
Yeah. We got a 7-month-old, and she doesn't want to sleep at all.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So how did you get started in comic books?
Well, I started collecting when I was 14. My cousin lived in Florida. I lived in New York, and I went down for a visit, and it was raining a lot because it was the summertime. Unbeknownst to me, that was normal down there. But for me, it was like, oh, my God, I want to go to the beach or something. And he had comic books, X-Men 205. So I read it, and I was like, this is amazing. And he had 206 to 212, and I read that. I'm like, oh, my God, where did you get this? He goes, oh, you go to a comic book store. And I'm like, there's a store? What are you talking about? So our parents took us to the comic book store, and you open the door, and literally it's the oh moment. And that's how I started collecting. But I like to draw. Since I was like 6 or 7 years old, you know what I mean, birds and whatever, then Dungeons and Dragons, and then I just draw comic books. In college years, I lived in upstate New York, and there's a comic book show, and Bart Sears was going to be there. He was my favorite artist, and he was working on Justice League Europe. Now, I had a friend, Tom Chapman, one of those disgustingly talented guys who didn't have to try. He just was good at drawing. And so we worked together, and he's like, you could be my inker. And I'm like, what's an inker? So you go over the lines and like blah, blah, blah. So went to the show, and I'm holding some samples just to show my friends. And I'm waiting in line because just like Europe, right? Power Girl, 24.
Yeah.
So I get in line, and I get a sketch from him. So I'm talking to Tom. I come back. I go like this, and it's a headshot. And I'm like this, and I'm literally doing this. And he looks up to me. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, what is this? It's a head sketch. I go, but Power Girl, tits. What? He's like, you know how many of these I've drawn today? That's a problem. He's like, oh, well, you an artist? And then I tongue-tied death because you're idol. He's like, let me see your samples. So it's funny because he goes like this, trying to look at it, and then he stops, and then he looks at it again. Now, like I said, Tom's really good. I'm just the inker on it. And he asked, and I'm like, I'm just an inker. And he looked at it. Now, he sat next to Tom Lyle, who was working on Robin at the time, and Graham Nolan was working on Hawkworld. So after he looked at it, he gave it to Graham Nolan. He looked at it, jotted a couple things, went to Tom, looked at it, got passed right down the table. It was like maybe 12, Tom Vincent, one Richard Pini, and they all kind of wrote little things. And he goes, if you work in these things, you could probably be a comic book artist. So why don't you work on them? Come on back next year. I'm like, yes! Ran home, told parents, gonna be a comic book artist. They're like, that's great. You need a backup plan. So that's kind of how it started. That's how I got into the comic books. It's all Bart Sears' fault.
Nice. So do you do comic books full-time or part-time?
No, when I was trying to break in the backup plan, I got my degree in design and got into graphics. Because back then I was married and I started having kids early. By the time I was 29, I had 3 kids. So you need to be the responsible thing. Luckily, by that time, I moved to Florida and I was working for Lockheed Martin. And then from there, I got a job at Walt Disney World in creative marketing because I was a hybrid. I knew computers, I knew graphics, programs, but I could also draw. So I was very marketable. So I worked for Disney, worked for Universal, and worked for NASCAR. And then I worked for Warner Brothers and DC Licensing. And then I was Verizon as an art director. And then I was a creative director for about 8 or so years before I semi-retired. So in that span, I worked full-time some of the time, but it was mostly a part-time thing. That's why people I know your name, I'm not really sure where it's from, because I've done a lot of cool stuff in just little bits, because when you're working for these big companies, insurance and everything, you make really good money. It's kind of hard to justify trying to, yes, I was trying to, work on all these things all the time, but this was the main focus for money. The comic books was trying to get the big thing. So.
Okay. So, do you kickstart your books?
I do. I learned how to about 2.5 years ago.
All right. Do you have a book currently on Kickstarter?
I do. So I have a horror series called Zombies Were Human Too, telling zombie stories before and how they became zombies through these three teenage children. They're the main people in our series. We did a Kickstarter for Volume 1 and Volume 2, and basically the main storyline is kids foraging for food, spooked by zombies, chased into a warehouse, and they call them the youngest. They make up stories of zombies that they see, who they were, how long they lasted, how they died, sometimes in a funny way. Then we got art teams to do the zombie stories, different writers and artists. So it's kind of like an anthology, but it's one main story driving. So we did that for a couple of years. The Kickstarter is Stan Yak's exclusive comic book from that series. Now, in the comic book industry, in the indie industry, if you say Stan Yak, you know his name. Everyone who has been lucky to work with Stan Yak, his artwork is amazing. He is one of the underrated comic book artists that are out there. And we have a Kickstarter with just his artwork that he did for Volume 1 and Volume 2 packaged in a nice little comic book. So we launched the Kickstarter yesterday for it.
Right. And if people want to pick up any of your previous books, do you have a website?
You can go through Facebook right now.
Okay.
I can do graphics, but I was horrible at websites. I stopped mine about 4 or 5 years ago because social media was such a huge thing. People did social media postings, and that's how really you got your information out there to buy products. I just kind of let it go by the wayside. So, yeah, Facebook and Instagram is probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay. Do you still have some of your earlier Marvel books and stuff that people can pick up?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I worked on Iron Man: The End with Bob Layton in Bob Layton's studio, which was very intimidating, to say the least. I think they re-released it last year they packaged a new cover on the book and everything. So if you go to Amazon or some comic book stores, I'm sure you can probably find them.
All right.
The X-Men stuff, God, I know. They're probably in the back issues somewhere.
I had a chance to meet Bob Layton. I got the picture.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
He always looks like a Hollywood executive. It's so funny.
So how is it working with Bob Layton? Is he the same as in person?
What, you mean, like, kind of quiet and shy and doesn't really talk to anybody? Or
Yeah.
Mr. No, Bob's laid back. When you have Bob Layton, the showman, when he's out on shows and whatever, he's kind of doing his thing. Bob just has that quiet confidence. He has done so much. He's just there, and he's just laid back, and he's cool, but he knows so much. I remember when I was working with him, we inked with Quill on Iron Man, and he's literally just inking and holding it up and inking while holding it up on a quill, just doing, and I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could do something like that. I'm a brush inker by trade. Mostly I do my brush inking. I've gotten to the point now where I'm very comfortable. I can do pretty much any line with a brush, and I can kind of do that, not to the confidence that he does. I mean, well, because of me, he's Bob Layton. But yeah, he's just a cool guy, nice and smooth. Yeah.
Is there anybody that you worked with that's your favorite? Or I guess we couldn't say favorite, or
that I really enjoyed working with?
Yes, thank you.
So I was very fortunate enough to ink over Pablo Marcos on a Red Sonja. And we did 4 images. Yeah, so Pablo doesn't ever let, from what I knew, had anyone inked his stuff before. He would always pencil it and then go right to watercolors, and that's pretty much how he did his artwork. But we were at MegaCon, and we got to chatting. He really enjoyed that I was a brush inker in my lines. And I said, if you want me to ink anything, feel free to ask me. Never in a million years thinking he would actually ask me, because he never did that, but he did. So I did a couple of Red Sonja covers. One got used for 100. Came out about 4 or so years ago. So, and Pablo is one of the most unassuming, nicest geniuses artists you've ever met too. Just very humble, very nice. Him and his wife are just a delight. I enjoyed working with him because he did everything. He could pencil, he could ink, and he could watercolor, and he just did it so flawlessly. You know what I mean? I remember I had the paper, the original wasn't blue line, his artwork sitting on my art table, and I stared at it for 4 days because I couldn't. I had to get my, let's get going. So, yeah, that's my favorite.
All right. And I know you worked on Invincible.
Yes. So Joe Martino is a good friend of mine. He does Shadow Flame and a bunch of other books. And I knew Robert Kirkman from Battle Pope days. We chatted, at conventions. We were kind of friendly and everything. He wouldn't remember me now. But Joe knew him too. And he got to talking. He's like, hey, Joe, we got an opening in 14. You got something to put in there? And Joe's like, oh, we could put a pinup in it if you want to. So Joe, myself, and Dash Martin did a pinup for 14, and we got in the book.
Nice.
So
is there a character that you want to draw that you haven't had a chance to draw yet?
Well, Batman. Yeah. Oh, I have a whole storyline based around Mr. Freeze's wife, and very intricate, and it could be something big. And I've talked to Carl Moline about doing the artwork we're going to try to pitch. But then COVID happened, and then DC kind of blew apart with their distribution. Who knows what's going on with them? But yeah, the Batman family I would really enjoy working on because it's just so juicy. It's just so good.
They never brought Mr. Freeze's wife back to life, did they?
No, they didn't. So it's an untapped thing that could have some really good, far-reaching stuff. The ideas that we have going on, going back to the Cold War, playing on the whole ice thing.
All right. What's the best way for us to follow news about your upcoming books or any of your upcoming projects?
So Instagram is Austin Janowsky. I'm being a lot better with that. Facebook, you can definitely find stuff if Facebook isn't like suppressing it for one reason or another. If people want to just find general stuff about me, and I know it sounds kind of whatever, just Google my name. You'll find all sorts of stuff between the comic book stuff and my film stuff I started about 5 years ago. When I semi-retired as a creative director, I got into film, so I've been acting and directing for about 5-6 years.
Oh, nice. Tell us about that.
Sorry about my phone. So a friend had a film. He wanted me to be a ghoul. Then another friend of mine needed a backyard security or something. Anyway, I said, this is great. This is fun. I mean, if I wanted to do this, what do I do? What's going on? And he's like, well, you just need to audition. I'm like, well, how do I audition? Just find things to audition for and do it. So I did it. Started auditioning, but then I started getting roles. And then I got enough roles to get a reel, to get an agent. And then my agent got me some bigger stuff, and I got commercials. Like I did Florida Lottery and a few others, like Lowe's, whatever. And then I got a bigger agent, went for the Southeast, and then I got a manager in LA. So now, fast forward, as an actor, I've got a film called 45 Seconds. It's completed. That should be on Netflix, I think, in November. And then I've got a series called Black Veil that was created by Dan Marek and Jeffrey Reddick. If you don't know the names, Dan Marek did Blair Witch Project. Jeffrey Reddick created a Final Destination series. So they have a new horror series, Black Veil, in episode 1 and maybe episode 3. And then I have another feature film called Marita. It's a horror film that's going to be in Savannah. Anyway, that's kind of how I fell into the place. I was auditioning, and I was lucky enough to start getting roles, and then bigger agents, bigger roles, and it's just kind of how it happened. Directing-wise, I wrote my first movie, Love, Hate, The Amazing Life of a Comic Book Artist, which is on YouTube. It's a real stretch, man. It was tough. I just had to dig deep for that one because I just wanted to be able to write a script and try to make a movie. And then from there, I started directing and writing my other films, like Mortem Happens, a couple others, because behind the camera, you can see how the parts work, sound, lighting. And then once you do that, it helps you, one, as a storyteller, but two, also as an actor, because you know what to do and what not to do to help them. In order to get work on set, you need to be a solution and you need to be easy to work with. And if you understand the different parts, it makes it a lot easier for them, saves them money. So.
All right. So November on Netflix, is all of them coming out? All three of them coming out on Netflix?
No, just 45 seconds right now. Love Hate is on YouTube. Mortem Happens is a proof of concept for a feature film, and it's being looked at by a couple of producers. That just basically means it's on a shelf somewhere, and they'll get to it when they get to it, probably. Who knows? It's nice though, because like I just auditioned for HBO's TV show The Staircase with Colin Firth, so I just sent that in about 3 days ago. Being able to audition for TV network shows is really my goal now, and I've been lucky to start doing that since the pandemic happened. Since February this year, I've had about 80 auditions, which is great.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been pretty good.
Wow. How do you do an audition? Do you go in and they tell you what to read, or you send a video of your range that you can do?
So before COVID, a lot of it would be a live read. It would either be a cold read, or they would give you sides to what to read for, and then you try to be off book. Now, cold read is when you walk in, they give you sides, they'll give you 5 or so minutes to kind of read over the script, make some decisions and choices on how you want to do this character. Go in, do it. You can hold your paper while you're auditioning, and then they'll redirect you, kind of see what your range is if you're directable. Self-taping is where they'll send you sides in. You go off book, and off book means you know the lines, you don't need to hold a piece of paper. And then you're basically like this, you're taping until you see something that you like, or what you're trying to do, convey with the characters and everything, and the sounds, and it's good, and then you submit it in. Since the pandemic, that's really been the way to go, obviously, because the COVID and everything. Even now, so what we're finding is, or what I'm finding out is from my agents, instead of seeing 12 people live to audition for the role, now they can see up to 80 self-taping. So it opens a wider net for them to try to bring people in. And that's kind of what's been going on. And that's one of the reasons why I've been lucky enough to get more auditions than I had in the past couple of years, because of this self-taping thing. I've got where my art table and everything is, I converted into a little studio area and backdrop and lights and everything to kind of tape. So not here, this is my living room, but the chair is more comfortable,
All right, nice. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
Yeah. Kickstarter is a big thing, and I know there's a lot of stuff going on. If you can take a minute and take a look and check out the Kickstarter, see if it's something that you like. Staniak is an amazing guy, and we made this book specifically because we're very thankful that he took the time to work on our Volume 1, Volume 2. It's a unique zombie series. It's not something you would normally do. And this comic book is a standalone, which means it's not just his zombie stories, it's incorporating the main storyline pages into the comic book, into an introductory of the series itself. So if you've never picked up Volume 1 or Volume 2, pick up the book. It kind of opens up our world to you. And if you're interested, then you can get the Volume 1 and Volume 2 if you want to.
All right. Do you have a bundle deal for all three?
No, not yet. Not for this one. It was basically just a comic book. But we have Volume 3, all the zombie stories in by artists. Volume 4, we open it up. We've got about maybe 3 or 4 stories. We're going to do a Kickstarter for Volume 3 probably in October. And then we'll do 4 in February, and then we'll go from there.
All right.
In October, we'll do the bundle thing.
Okay, really quick before we go, if anybody wants to submit a story, how can they do so?
Okay, so it's zombies. Actually, scratch that. Tin Sky Media, TINSKYMEDIA @gmail. You can submit story ideas. The idea is it's supposed to be up to 1 to 10 pages, and it needs to either be funny, ironic, or crazy. Not super. It can be super scary, but remember, It's about how them becoming zombies, who they were, how long they lasted, and how they died, sometimes in a funny way. Those are the criteria.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to come talk with us.
Dude, I'm so excited. I've been wanting us to interview, get me on, and very good. Good way to start a Sunday.
Oh, yeah. Well, let us know when you want to come back.
Anytime, man. Yeah, I'll send you a message. That'd be great.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comicchatauthority? Oh, come on. Subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Like, man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.